Do you have questions about private label and the private label process of selling your own branded products on Amazon? In today's episode of the Amazon Seller Podcast, Liran Hirsckorn is going to share with us some of his insights that he shared with the Amazing Freedom Amazon Sellers Facebook group recently in an Ask Me Anything.
This is the Amazon Seller Podcast, hosted by multi-million-dollar Amazon sellers helping you launch your private label business to the next level. Find us on amazingfreedom.com or subscribe to this podcast on iTunes and YouTube.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Amazon Seller Podcast. My name is Nathan, and I'm here with Liran Hirsckorn. And before we get into today's episode, I just want to remind you to check out our free private label course at amazingfreedom.com/smart. This course walks you through our 5-step process of getting started with private label. It's really valuable information for free that you should really check out if you haven't yet. All right, so in today's episode of the Amazon Seller Podcast, we're actually just going to go over some of the questions that Liran recently got in an Ask Me Anything that he held in the Amazing Freedom Amazon Sellers Facebook group. There was a ton of great questions that were asked, so we thought that it would be a good idea to just create a podcast episode around all these questions that Liran got and kind of do a rapid answer format for those. So Liran, if you're ready, I'm going to ask you those questions in kind of a rapid answer format. We'll try not to take too long on any one question so that we can hit these quickly. And then really just for our listeners, try to get them answers to a lot of the questions that sellers have when they start getting introduced to private label, or even if you have been doing private label for a while. These are some of the questions that most of us come across at one time or another, and that Liran will share his insights with us and what he thinks the answers are. So if you're ready, I'm going to go and we're going to try to just answer these probably 30 seconds or less for each question. Some maybe a little less, some a little more, but we'll do our best to keep this in a good time format.
All right.
So we'll start off here. First question, and it's a good question for people that are getting into private label. Liran, what's your process for coming up with product ideas?
Sure. So a couple of different ways that you can come up, or that I come up with product ideas. One, I think I said I go through the Amazon catalog with like a fine tooth comb, looking at, lots of different categories, best sellers, and sort of playing, going down rabbit holes on the Amazon catalog. That's one way. Another good way is to use something like the Jungle Scout web app, but, don't just go for what other people are putting in. Think a little bit differently outside the box and find things other people are not.
Awesome. I'm going to ask these questions kind of in the order that they came in during the Ask Me Anything you held. So if you're listening, it might seem like we're kind of jumping around from topic to topic, but that's because we're just answering these in the same order they came in, and try to just soak up as much as you can. But this is probably a good episode to go back and listen to some of these answers. All right, next question for you, Liran. How many reviews should you have before doing sponsored ads?
0. So, you can't just quickly get reviews through, incentivized reviews anymore. So I wouldn't slow down the process. Start your sponsored ads, get your sales, and then you'll get reviews.
All right. And that's kind of maybe a different answer than you'll hear from some other people. So that's kind of interesting to get your take on that. So that's good. All right. We have another question. How do you scale effectively?
So I think scaling effectively is having the right products and launching those products and getting those products ranked and selling well is really the, private labels not difficult to scale effectively because you essentially can buy unlimited inventory. It's a matter of choosing the right products and, wash, rinse, and repeat.
All right. We had kind of a follow-up to that. They said, they can add SKUs, plenty of SKUs, but if they have trouble effectively managing them and staying in stock, et cetera, what would be your advice on that?
So I would say, as far as effectively managing it and staying in stock, look at your top 20% of SKUs that are generating most sales. Make sure you never run out of stock on those SKUs. Always be in stock on those, and again, should not be hard to manage because you don't need to have 100 SKUs to have a $1 million account. You really only need like 5 to 10 good SKUs to have a $1 million seller account.
Yeah. And like you said, just focusing on the winners can really help you prioritize, what's important. If you go out of stock on your worst product, it might not be as big of a deal. Just never run out of stock on those top ones. All right, great. This person says they have 7 reviews on a product. They ran PPC, but they're not getting enough sales. What do I do to increase that? They've used keyword tools to help, but they're just looking for that edge. How do they increase their sales?
Yeah. So one thing you want to look at is, if you're running PPC, what are the type of impressions that you're getting? Are you actually getting a good amount of impressions and a good amount of clicks? What's your click-through rate? So you want to look at that. You want to look at your listing quality, making sure it's good. So if you're getting the impressions, but people are not clicking on your ads, on your PPC ads, then the question is why? Maybe your listing is not optimized. And 2, then you want to look at where you're ranking for your major keywords and see if you're showing up or not. And those are the things that you want to address.
All right. And this, as a follow-up to that, they said they've been running their PPC for about 2.5 weeks. Do you have any kind of insights on that, about how long you should wait to really analyze your PPC, or maybe just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So 2 weeks is a good amount of time to let an auto campaign run and analyze. You can even run a broad match manual campaign, throw in a ton of keywords is my strategy in there, and then see what sticks and what doesn't stick in terms of good profitable keywords, and then optimize. So give it 2 weeks and put in a budget. You have to be within whatever your budget is. It could be $10 a day, $20 a day, it could be $100 a day, just to get a lot of data really quickly and then be able to optimize off that data after about 2 weeks.
Great. All right. How much should you invest in your first PL product? This is a question we get a lot, so I think we've answered it before, but again, kind of give your idea of what you see as typical budget for first-time investors.
Yeah, so typical budget could be $2,000, $3,000 as far as like your initial buying investment. You probably want to have a little bit more money set aside if you're going to outsource some things, like writing your listing, like photography, all that kind of stuff. You probably want to have $4,000, $5,000 set aside for the process, but a good first purchase maybe about $2,000, $3,000.
All right. What's your favorite character or category, to launch
Donald
new
Duck.
products in? Yeah, Donald Duck. All right.
Wrong question.
Favorite character and favorite category.
Favorite category to sell in. So, I mean, I sell in a whole bunch of categories, from sports and outdoors to home and kitchen to apparel, a whole bunch of categories. Baby's a good one. I don't have a specific favorite category. I think you want to go a lot of times where a lot of people are not necessarily going, but I think it's just finding the opportunities more so than like category specific.
All right. Here we have a question. What is your personal outlook for private label for the rest of 2017 and into 2018? Are you still launching new products? What's your personal take on this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm in the process of launching several new products right now. And so if private label is no longer a good opportunity, then, at best case, I'd only be focusing on my existing products. At worst case, I'd be looking for another business model. So definitely still a ton of opportunity. If you look at online sales as compared to industry of total retail sales, we're only at about 8 to 10%. So there's still tremendous opportunity, still good opportunity on Amazon. You just can't do the same product everybody else is doing. You can't go for those really saturated products, and you have to be creative and have good listings, good design on your product, good quality, and then you have a fighting chance to succeed.
Awesome. Do you think hiring inspection for my first private label product is essential?
Yes, absolutely essential. You don't want to end up with, I saw somebody posted in another group just this week that they said, I have about 30 sales on my product. I have more product than Amazon. I'm afraid the product is defective. It actually could be harmful. And maybe it's some kind of health and beauty, or I don't know what type of product, but is defective and could be harmful. What should I do? Should I refund all the people who bought from me, etc.? And it's a good question. They probably should refund everybody and contact those people if it's potential liability issue. But you absolutely want to not avoid those problems. And one big way of avoiding those issues is having an inspection before the item gets shipped and before you pay that final 70% for the product before they ship it out.
Yeah, I'd echo that same thoughts. And, it could save a lot of headache for people if they would just go ahead and get that inspection done especially on their first time,
Yeah,
first product and first time ordering.
and it's really, really cheap to do it too. It's about 100 to $200 for an inspection. So, well worth it.
All right. This person said that they created a private label product and put together a website, but Amazon refused to give them brand registry. Well, brand registry has changed now. So instead of answering this, why don't you kind of just give your insights on brand registry 2.0 and kind of what's going to be required for brand registry going forward and when that's going to be available and all that.
Sure. So, so brand registry, the next version should be coming out very soon, sometime this month in May. The reason Amazon decided to change up the brand registry is because they want to give brands more protection over their brand, over their trademark. So what it's going to look like is, I believe brands will have access to actually search for trademarked words, including their brand name. But if you think of big companies like Velcro, for example, that's actually a trademarked trademark name, and anybody using the word Velcro in their listing and not actually using a Velcro product is something Velcro wants to go after. So they'll be able to search by their trademarked words, whether it's brand name or not, and be able to find all the listings on Amazon that's using that term, and they can check if they're buyers of that product or not, or using the legitimate product of Velcro, and not like a different product that's similar, and actually kick off those sellers selling those products. And so that's kind of going to be brand registry. Will require you to submit a trademark to Amazon of your brand, and from what I hear, you should be able to better control like hijackers jumping on your listings, and have more control on your brand. So it's a good thing. It looks like there will be more requirements than in the past to file for brand registry, but a good thing for brand owners. Something that may be tough for resellers who are not buying directly from an authorized source, who are buying like gray market goods, or buying from sources other than direct.
Right. And there's a lot of concern, right, about the trademark and that it takes some time, right? You've recently filed for some trademarks, right? What was your experience of just applying for a trademark and the length of time it took to, get some responses? Can you share that with us?
Yeah, sure. So trademark, I actually used Trademark 411. The process, I think the government fee is like $275, and I think I paid another $175 for Trademark 411 to file for me and go through the process. It does take they initially file, then there's a search done by the government, then they come back. The process took about maybe 7-8 months for me to actually get the trademark. So it is a process. They have to advertise at some point your trademark, and anybody who wants to sort of dispute it has 30 days to dispute it. So it has to be like a newspaper ad or something like that they take out, or an internet ad that they take out. So it's a process. What I would say is that if you have a brand, you should file a trademark. If you have your first product on Amazon and it's selling okay, and you think you're going to continue with that brand, definitely file a trademark. It's not the first thing you need to do when you're, the first money you need to spend when you're sourcing a product. But once you have a brand, a product that's selling under that brand name, and you're going to keep it, file for the trademark. And I don't know if Amazon is going to just accept a trademark application, or if they're going to want the full trademark issued. But this is, right now, if you don't have a trademark, go out and file it if it's a brand that you're going to keep.
Right. So yeah, we'll have more information on that. Probably talk about it in a future podcast episode soon. Like Liran said, we should know more within a couple of weeks here. All right. Next question. What's the price of your highest priced private label item? You can just give us a range of approximately what it's around.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have a range of products between about $70 and $100. The nice thing about it is that it's a harder entry for somebody who's just starting private label. It's probably, my first product was not in that price range. My first product was about $30. Retail price cost me about $10. So that's more typical. So your competition is going to be minimized at that price point, and you also can have much better margins when you're selling a high priced product. So I do have products that go as high as that. I spoke to a seller this week that has some products that sell really well, like I don't know, more than 10 units a day on a $200 product. So it is possible, and you want to think outside the range where a lot of sellers are thinking. Again, talking about thinking differently than what other people are sourcing.
Awesome. And one of the nice things sometimes, if you can raise your average selling price or ASP, is that it can take less work sometimes you might only need to sell 10 units a day. Well, that's a good amount, but sometimes it takes less work to receive the same margins or revenue, right, per month.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you think about the things that I need to do for that product, similar to my other products, I still need to run, pay-per-click. I still need to optimize my pay-per-click. I still need to send in that inventory using my freight forwarder, and I pay them, I pay the same fee on that product as I pay on other products, right? That they prep and send into Amazon for me. So there's a lot of fixed costs or fixed time that you spend on a product. So if you have a higher margin product, that means you're better, more efficiently using your time to make more money.
Awesome. All right. We have a question here. What would you recommend is the best approach for one to be familiar with establishing a process and understanding that around private label? I'd say first set off, listen to our podcast and be a part of the amazing Freedom Amazon Sellers Group. I think that's a good starting place to get familiar with establishing private label, but I'll let you answer it.
Yeah. So one, I think you need to just get started, right? Because, you're going to learn a lot just by doing. So don't be afraid to jump in, even if you don't know everything. A good quote for that is, you hear Tony Robbins. I heard Mark Cuban say, perfect is the enemy of good, right? So you don't need to have everything, all the knowledge. Just get started. You'll learn as you go, or learn as you earn. But yes, also, we have a free private label course you can download. It's amazing, freedom.com/smart. That's a good resource for you to get started with. And then, listen to this podcast, read posts in our group about private label. There's other groups, there's other podcasts. There's lots of information out there, from free to obviously to paid courses. But the biggest thing I would say is get started.
Awesome. Here we have a question about MOQs. What's in your opinion kind of like the MOQ that a new seller should not exceed when they're first bringing over a private label product?
Yeah, so I mean, definitely, I don't think you need over 1,000 units of your first product. Unless you're like, this is an absolute winner, and it's like October, and you're bringing in for Christmas, and you want to take a little bit more of a risk. But generally, I would say you don't need to get more than 1,000 units. And typically, my first order on a product is anywhere between 300 to 500 units, because I don't want to take excessive risk on a new product. Even if I do believe that it's going to be a good seller, I'd rather go out of stock than get stuck with a ton of inventory.
Okay. Here we have a question. For you personally, do you have any private label items that are bundles?
So I'm trying to think. I don't think I have any private label items that are bundles, but bundling is not a bad idea at all.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about inspection agents, and do you have personal experience with any that you could recommend, or maybe just some that you are familiar with that you could just talk about quickly?
Yeah, sure. So I use a company called Richforth. I think their website is inspectgoods.com. They charge, so you can do an inspection in one of two ways. You can do a sampling of your inventory, so maybe like 5 to 10%. They'll randomly check units. It's typically about $100. They charge a PayPal fee, so it's like $108. Or you can inspect every single unit. If you only have like 500 units, let's say, or 1,000 units, the difference between a sampling and a full inspection can be, instead of 100, you might pay 200 or 300. So a lot of times that's worth it. If you have 5,000 units, it doesn't make sense to do to do anything more than a sampling. But that's what I use.
All right. This is about product photos or images. This person asks, if they're not quite ready to get professional product photos, or they have some that they think are pretty good, do you have any recommendations? And then they asked about the photo service we actually have. So if you want to just talk about that real quick.
Yep. So I'll just pull back a little bit. So if you want to use a professional photographer and get really good lifestyle photos, like with a model, or like if you have a coffee product and you want it to be in a kitchen with the coffee beans and food around you and all that, you're probably looking for a set of like 5 to 7 images at about $400 to $600, around $500. If that's not within your budget to get started, or sometimes for me, that's something I would upgrade to once I have a good selling product. I might get started with something like our image service, which basically will take pictures you either took on your phone or like one good image that you have, and then we'll we have full-time designers that will actually use Photoshop to add in. We have stock photography that we pay for. We'll add in lifestyle images. We'll add in the food around the coffee. We'll add in the model holding the coffee product in their hand or drinking the coffee, etc. And that's right now it's $129 for a set of 7 images. It's like a steal. You can't really get it anywhere else. And the website for that is amazingfreedom.com/magic. So that could be a good way for you to get started. And then if you feel like you want to upgrade to those lifestyle photos, then, after 6 months, if you have a really good selling product, then, pay for the upgrade.
Awesome. Another personal question for you, and this might be different for anyone listening, but it's good to kind of get your insights. What's your minimum monthly profit that you look for per SKU when you're bringing over a new private label product?
Sure. So, I typically my goal is to have at least $5,000 a month in revenue. So talking about revenue, looking at your profitability, a little bit more difficult. You're going to have costs that you don't anticipate or you don't look at up front. For example, like your sponsored ad costs. But I would want a product that has at least $5,000 in revenue. And if you think about it, if you have 10 products and 5,000 in revenue, I would consider like a double, like it's not a home run. It's not like really poor. It's like a double. So if you have like 10 doubles at 5,000, 50,000 a month in revenue, during the year. So you're looking at, 500,000 over 10 months. Then you have the holiday season, November, December, and you could be looking at a $1 million, seven-figure seller account with like a bunch of doubles. So I wouldn't bypass those doubles. And it's kind of what I look for. Some of those doubles turn out to be home runs. When I actually import them and they start selling, they do really well. They turn out to be home runs. Some turn out to be singles or losers. So ideally, I try to look for at least 5,000.
Okay, and that would be in sales that you're looking for there, right?
Yeah,
5,000.
Yeah, 5,000 in sales, because again, it's hard for me to know if that 5,000 in sales is going to translate into $2,000 in profit or $3,000 in profit. It really just depends on the volume I'm doing, how it converts, the sponsored ads. So it's tough, but I'll take either one. I'll take 1,500, 2,000 profit on a $5,000 item. Even 1,000 is a 20% net profit after all expenses. I'd still take that.
Right. It's still a good double, like you were saying, if you can add those up and get multiple. All right. Here we have a question about bringing the products to Amazon. They ask, I know it depends on the private label product, but do you usually ship every single unit into Amazon?
So I typically do, only because I don't have a warehouse. So I typically send every single unit to Amazon. My freight forwarder can also store, but I haven't really had a tremendous issue with like crazy long-term storage fees. So that's what I do currently. As Amazon continues and they have been raising the fees, that might be something that you do want to look at, having a warehouse that can like ship in products to you, especially like during, October, November, December, where it seems like Amazon's been raising the warehouse fees. So it's not a bad idea to consider, but if you're just starting out and you're getting 300 to 500 units, just send them all into Amazon. If you're ordering, 5,000 units of a product and you're selling, 300-400 a month, then you want to store it.
Okay. Just a couple more we'll ask here.
Sure.
If my logo cannot be printed on the product, is it possible that the product could still be good or worthwhile if they can only add the logo to the packaging? What would be your recommendation in that case?
Yeah, definitely. It really depends on the product, right? If you're selling soap, you're probably not going to have your logo on the product. So it depends. You can have your logo just on the packaging, and that could still be fine, especially if you have really nice packaging. But it really depends on the quality of your product and that product's opportunity, right? If you're selling a soap, an African soap with some specific ingredients that aren't found in a lot of soaps, that helps people with eczema, right? And that works really well. Yeah, it could be a great product without having your logo on it.
Okay, and this one's kind of a little bit of a follow-up. And I think this is something that a lot of sellers run into when they're dealing with suppliers that they find on Alibaba. They say the manufacturer recommends me to use their existing design and make the customized package so that the minimum quantity will be much lower. Can you kind of just give your thoughts on what people should be careful when they're dealing with suppliers and using existing designs and all that?
Yeah, I mean, you just want to, so if you don't go that route, you're going to have a unique design that other sellers are not doing, because a lot of sellers are going to take that existing design for the lower MOQ, but then you're going to probably have a whole bunch of sellers on Amazon with the identical product. So you just want to evaluate what is it going to take. If you have an idea for a different design or for a better improved design, what is it going to take to actually produce that? Are you reading all the bad reviews on that product on Amazon and seeing what can be improved from that design? That's something you should be doing. Sourcing any product on Amazon is looking across competitors, writing down like on a note card or Evernote or something, all the negative reviews, all the reasons why people don't like the product, and then try to use that with your supplier to say, hey, can you make this change to make this and this better? And then that's kind of what I like to do so that I can actually bring value. The one question you want to always ask yourself in private label is, why should somebody buy from me? And if you're producing the same product as just like anybody else has, well, you better hope there's only one or two like that on Amazon where you can still actually sell it. But once there's 20 like that on Amazon, it might get tough. So you kind of want to think about differentiation of your product.
And something that I think everyone should kind of be aware when they first start dealing with suppliers is that most Chinese suppliers are going to try to get you like the cheapest option, because that's kind of just their experience, that, people that are buying from them want to just make everything as cheap as possible. But what that might in turn happen, like we were on saying, is you might come up with just a very bland, generic product that, 20 other people have already brought to Amazon. And if you would have just put out a little bit more money to make a change, it could have a significant impact. So you want to be careful. Don't just, spend money unnecessarily, but sometimes just a little change can make a big impact. So let's just do like one more here. We'll end with a kind of a technical note about PPC, sponsored ads. I know this is kind of one that a lot of people struggle with, because it is, kind of takes a little bit more experience and knowledge to understand this. And Liran, we know you have a lot of experience in it. So we'll ask you, at what point can I be confident that ad groups or keywords within an ad group should be changed? Like they're just not working for you. They go on to say, real quick, they go on to say, if they look at their search term report and there's a click-through rate of 0.4% or higher. So what would you kind of say, like, is enough impressions or clicks to really just know if this is working?
Well, one, if you're not getting impressions, then something, those Amazon doesn't think that you're relevant for that keyword. Maybe you need to see where that keyword is in your listing and maybe move it into your title or something. But if you are getting impressions, 1,000 impressions is a good. I don't judge any specific search term until I have at least 1,000 impressions, sometimes up to 2,000 impressions. Another thing I look at is like 10 clicks. So if I've had 10 clicks and no sales, that's a sign for me that that keyword might not be converting well. So those are the things that you want to look at. But I would say at least 1,000 impressions. At least I look at least 10 clicks. So if I spent $10 to $15 on a search term, let's say, and I haven't even gotten one sale from it, then something's wrong. That I might eliminate that search term, unless that's like my main keyword. Then something else is wrong, because then I'm just not converting for what I think should be my main keyword, and then I need to look at my listing to see why I'm not converting. Then it's not the keyword, it's my listing. So there's a multitude of things that you want to evaluate, but those are the ones I would start with.
All right, awesome. Well, I think that's going to do it for today. There's a couple more questions, but we might have to hit them in a future episode on the podcast. I think you gave us a lot of valuable information, Liran. We always appreciate your insights and your knowledge. I know you're constantly learning and trying to improve your Amazon knowledge. And really, guys, this information changes on a regular basis, right? With Amazon, it's fast-paced. Things move quickly. So we think it's important that you're constantly trying to be on the cutting edge of information and know what's going on. And that's important, because if you don't, it can impact your sales negatively, or it could lead to a violation of Amazon's terms of service, right? Those types of things you should constantly be trying to learn and be on the forefront of that. And Liran is someone that's constantly trying to do that. And so that's what we try to bring you in the Amazon Seller Podcast episodes. And hopefully that information is valuable. So again, that's going to do it for today. If you haven't yet, again, check out our free course at amazingfreedom.com/smart. And as we mentioned in the show, you can also check out our image service that we have at amazingfreedom.com/magic. We can bring your listings to life with professional high quality photos that are based off just your plain boring images that you currently have. Make sure you check that out at amazingfreedom.com/magic. And we'll see you on the next episode of the Amazon Seller Podcast.
You've been listening to the Amazon Seller Podcast. Make sure to subscribe and join us next time for another look at how to dominate the Amazon marketplace.